Today's guest is an abundantly talented woman and a fiercely unapologetic one at that. Cindy Gallop has created something that the world really does need. It is the alternative to porn. It is something that inspires creativity, connection, love, closeness, real human connection without the performance, without the patriarchal sex. So I hope you enjoy this episode all about Make Love Not Porn with Cindy Gallop. Welcome to this provocative and heartfelt podcast where patriarchy is defined as a paradigm that both men and women uphold in different ways. Here you get to listen in on genuine conversations between leaders from around the world to discover more mutual respect and less division, as well as more pleasure and love in your life. My name is Devashi Shakti, and you are warmly welcome to be part of these Beyond Patriarchal Sex conversations. Well, I'm incredibly happy that Cindy Gallop said yes to meeting me in this conversation because what you have been working on, Cindy, is so connected to this whole project at Beyond Patriarchal Sex because you have actually done what many people I've met have talked about doing and probably never get around to doing. You've actually done it. You've created a healthy alternative to porn. That's such a massive, experiment, project, task. How did you come to that?
So the answer is by complete and total accident.
Oh,
Because,
really?
yes, because I absolutely did not consciously, intentionally set out to do anything that I very bizarrely find myself doing now.
Ah,
Um, and by the way, everything in my life and career has happened by accident. I've never planned anything. So, Make Love Not Porn came about because I date younger men. And I want to just contextualize that for our listeners. I am someone who has never ever wanted to be married. I have never wanted children. Very glad, by the way, that I always knew that as opposed to finding out the hard way by actually having them. I adore being single. I'm not a relationship person. I cannot wait to die alone. And I date younger men casually and recreationally for sex. And I am deliberately very public about all of that because we don't have enough role models in our society, for women and for men, by the way, that demonstrate you can live your life very differently to the way that you're expected to and still be amazingly happy. And I'm one of the happiest people I know. So there I was dating younger men 18, 19 years ago now, when I began realizing through my direct personal experience having sex with younger men that I was encountering what happens when two things converge. And I stress the dual convergence because most people think it's only one thing. I realized I was experiencing what happens when today's total freedom of access to hardcore porn online meets our society's equally total reluctance to talk openly and honestly about sex. It's
mm.
when those two factors converge that porn becomes sex education by default in not a good way. So I found myself encountering a number of sexual behavioral memes in bed. I went, whoa, I know where that behavior is coming from. I thought, gosh, if I'm experiencing this, other people must be as well. I didn't know that because 18 years ago, nobody was talking about this. No one
Ah.
was. This was me in isolation as a naturally action oriented person going, right, I'm going to do something about this. So 17 years ago, purely as a little side venture at the time, I put up on no money a tiny clunky website at MakeLoveNotPorn.com that in its original version was kind of a public service announcement. The construct was porn world versus real world. Here's what happens in the porn world. Here's what really happens in the real world. I launched Make Love Not Porn at the TED conference in 2009. I became the only TED speaker to utter the words, "come on my face," on the TED stage several times. The talk went viral as a result, and it drove this extraordinary global response to my tiny website that I had never anticipated.
Hmm.
Thousands of people wrote to me from all around the world, young and old, male and female, straight and gay, pouring their hearts out, telling me things about their sex lives and their porn watching habits they'd never told anyone before. And I realized I'd uncovered a huge global social issue. And so that was the point at which I went, oh my God, I now have a personal responsibility. I have to take Make Love Not Porn forwards in a way that will make it much more far reaching, helpful, and effective. And so I turned Make Love Not Porn into a business designed to do good and make money simultaneously, which is what I believe the future of all business should be.
Yes.
And what I turned it into was, for 17 years, I've been saying the issue isn't porn. The issue is that we do not talk about sex openly and honestly in the real world.
Mm.
Because if we did, amongst a whole host of other benefits, people would then be able to bring a real world mindset to the viewing of what is simply performative produced entertainment. And so I went, okay, I've got to find a way to make it easy for every single person in the world to talk openly and honestly about sex. How am I going to do that? So I decided very simply to take every dynamic in social media and apply them to this one area of universal human experience that no other social network platform allows in order to socialize sex. And so I turned Make Love Not Porn into what we are today, which is the world's first and only user generated, importantly, 100% human curated social sex video sharing platform. So we're kind of what Facebook would be if it allowed you to openly, healthily, socially, sexually self express, which it clearly does not. The way to think about us is if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, Make Love Not Porn is the badly needed documentary. We
Mm.
need a unique window onto the funny, messy, loving, wonderful sex we all have in the real world. And as I said, we are socializing, normalizing, destigmatizing sex, bringing it out of the shadows into the sunlight to make it easier for everyone to talk about, to promote consent, communication, good sexual values and behavior. We are literally sex education through real world demonstration.
Yes, incredible. My God, there's so much in there, Cindy. Firstly, if we back up a bit about you personally, I've heard you say this about yourself a few times, really owning and enjoying, and I feel your enjoyment of what you're choosing as a woman every time I've heard you say that. It's genuine. It is against the status quo for sure. And to hear a woman saying it and owning it freely is probably confronting for people, but it's also just healthy, you know. We're not all the same. We're not all meant to be the same. And for a woman to openly declare that she's experiencing exactly what you are, there's actually quite a lot of women that maybe experience all or most of those things, but they are not readily declaring it to the world because there's probably going to be an assumed backlash or whatever. So for you to just unashamedly openly say it is very cool
Well,
to
well, honestly, it's more about, I'm open about it because I want people to stop and think.
hear.
I encourage people to stop and just ask themselves, take a long, hard look inside themselves, ask themselves, what would really make me happy? Because when you stop and think about that, what would really make you happy may not be what your parents want you to do,
Yeah.
what all your friends around you are all doing at the same time, what popular culture tells you you should want. I think there are many more people like me who do not realize it because they've lived their life in oiled grooves. They're living the life they were told they should want. And they've never stopped to question, is this really what makes me happy?
Yeah, yeah. So you say this with the intention to be like a permission for other people to get in touch with their own authentic desire, right?
Mm,
How they want to live.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that. Um, yeah, and so you went ahead and created, and I love how you distinguish social sex to porn. Like that's a pretty clear distinction if people weren't already on board with the meaning anyway. Um, because like you said, it's not so much people witnessing other people having sex, it's the way that it's done and the impact that it has, which would make the alternative that you've created probably life-giving, more creative. It's because the one of the biggest problems with porn is that people are going to it for sex education, and it is absolutely not that.
No, and by the way, that's why I've said for 17 years the issue is not porn. The issue is that we do not talk about sex openly and honestly in the real world. Many things are laid at porn store that should be laid at societies. It is not porn's job to educate, it's
Totally.
society's.
Yes, yes. And so simply because there's never really been an educational other opportunity, people just flock to that. And it's so unfortunate because it's so badly done, is that the majority of what people seem to be watching and the impact that that has on relationships, on young people is pretty damn devastating.
Yep, yep, sure. And again, because I'm sorry, I'm very semantically precise about this. The impact is not the porn. The impact is that nobody has been educated accurately about sex, and we are not talking about it openly and honestly in the real world. And so, you know, what what I and my team are doing at Make Love Not Porn is utterly transformative. As a unique business, and actually, I do just want to talk a bit more about how uniquely we operate before I go on to, the benefits we deliver. And I'm going to contextualize this next point in the broader tech landscape as a whole, because I find not enough people think about this. The young white male founders of the giant tech platforms that dominate all our lives today, they are not the primary targets, online or offline, of harassment, abuse, sexual assault, racism,
Mm,
violence, rape, intimate image abuse. Therefore, they did not and they do not proactively design for the prevention of any of those things on their platforms. And we
yes.
see the results of that around us every single day. Those of us who are most at risk every single day, women, Black people, people of color, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, we design safe spaces and safe experiences, but we don't get funded. Only 1.7% of all venture capital last year went to female founders. And that is why we have still not seen how much safer, better, happier, and by the way, way more lucrative the future of the internet and technology could be when it's designed and built through the female lens, and these are the two key words, at scale. I designed Make Love Not Porn to be the safest place on the internet. I designed around what everybody else should have, nobody else did, 100% human curation. There is no self-publishing of anything on Make Love Not Porn. Our curators watch every frame of every video submitted from beginning to end before we approve or reject and we publish it. No one else does that. We review every post on every member profile. And by the way, on Make Love Not Porn, your profile posts can be as safe work or not safe work as you like, but we review them, we approve or reject, and we publish them. We review every comment on every video before we approve or reject and we publish it. We can vouch for every single piece of content on our platform in a way that nobody else can. And the key point about that is we are tiny, bootstrapping, have no money and we've human curated everything for 13 years. Imagine what Facebook, Instagram, TikTok could do with their billions if they chose
That's
to.
right. That's right.
Safety on the internet is not a matter of liability, it's a matter of will. And I conceived our revenue share business model many years before OnlyFans to democratize access to income. So our members pay to subscribe, rent, and stream real world sex videos. Half that revenue goes to our contributors, whom we call our Make Love Not Porn stars. And as I was saying, as a unique business, we have a unique capability. We have the power to change people's sexual attitudes and behavior for the better in a way that nothing else can. So, in the 13 years we've operated, we've taught countless young people that porn is not sex in the real world. Gen Z loves us. We've saved numerous marriages and relationships. There's literally people write to us, "You saved my marriage," because we've inspired communications breakthroughs for couples around sex. Parents buy their teenage children subscriptions. They tell us, "I want my kids to see what happy, healthy, loving sex relationships actually look like." And as with any disruptive technology, use cases emerge that the founder never dreamt of. So I was blown away when we began hearing, as we do regularly, from survivors of rape, sexual assault, sexual abuse. We hear from female survivors, male survivors, trans non-binary survivors. They tell us that Make Love Not Porn helped them reclaim their bodies. We help
Yes.
them be able to be sexual again post-trauma in a situation where porn is way too triggering. And it's not just people who watch our videos. We have a number of Make Love Not Porn stars who tell us being able to share themselves sexually in a completely safe and trustworthy space has helped them process and heal from sexual trauma. I never thought of that as a use case when I came up with this idea. I'm obviously so happy that it is.
Yes, the positive impact that you can have. I'm actually sure it just keeps showing up more and more ways that that can happen as you have gotten into it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, to talk about a few more, one thing that's really important is that at Make Love Not Porn, we celebrate real world everything. Real world bodies, real world hair, real world penis size, real world breasts, real world vulvas. And the reason that's important is because you can talk body positivity all you like. You can preach self-love till you're blue in the face. At the end of the day, nothing makes us feel great about our own bodies like seeing people who are no one's idea of aspirational body types getting turned on by each other, desiring each other, having an amazing time in bed. In a world where every message popular culture sends us tells us you're not hot, you're not desirable, you're not attractive unless you are this skinny, six-pack abs, look like this, our members write to us and say, "You made me feel better about my own body." One man wrote and said, "My girlfriend and I now feel able to be more open and central with each other because you made each of us feel better about our own bodies." We show you what people really find hot, desirable, and attractive in the real world. And if we were only fun at a scale, we could literally make the scales drop from people's eyes, even more in a way that would stop people feeling inadequate. It's funny because the evidence of this is actually all around us, but people don't get it. Walk down the street in any city, look at the couples holding hands and cuddling. You will see what people really find hot, attractive, desirable in the real world.
Yes. Yes. And I talk to some people who go into schools and talk with kids. It's one of the things that I'm thinking about right now when I hear you. And I mean, when kids the bodies haven't even stopped growing yet, are being told that they don't measure up to the, completely plastic surgeried women
Mm.
in typical porn, if I can say typical porn.
But also it's not just that. Look at influencers on social media. This is not about porn. It's about everything in popular culture, as I said.
Yes, but I guess that's where people see fully naked bodies, I suppose. And
But not given the hypocrisy of social media. Influencers can be in tiny bikinis. I mean, look at Kim Kardashian. Look at what she's out there being. And by the way, those of us, with sex positive ventures, get our posts suspended, our accounts deleted. No, I mean, you know, ludicrously aspirational body types are all over social media and they're all over Hollywood. They're all over every movie you watch,
yeah,
every TV series. They are every pop star, because the Billie Eilishes of this world are not numerous enough versus the ones that are conforming to how they're meant to look. So this is absolutely not just a porn thing. It is everything.
yeah, it is everywhere. And I suppose with 13 years ago, when you first began, it's been that imagery has been infiltrated throughout society way, way more. And what I was going to say is to the degree where not just boys, definitely boys, but a lot of men have forgotten what a real woman's body looks like, and even women at this point, you know? And so for you to show real people that other people can relate to and go, oh, well, no, that is beautiful. And I look like that. And, they're not going to find that in a place where, one particular uh, image or standard is upheld as this is how to be.
But I would just say also that, and you're absolutely right. I mean, people find make love porn enormously reassuring, but I would just say too that I've spent 17 years trying to get people to see the nuance in all of this. You know, what you might watch and get turned on by and masturbate to is not necessarily what you want to connect with in real life. And I do a lot of work with boys and men. I do a lot of work on positive masculinity. And and by the way, also, in my own life, I can tell you, I've never been told I'm beautiful as often as when I started dating younger men. They look at me and think I'm the hottest thing out. And so I want our listeners to really understand that the media flattens narratives, the media stereotypes, because that's how you clickbait. And actually, I can tell you that there are a lot of, lovely people out there in the world who may enjoy masturbating to porn that shows them one thing, but in the real world, they are madly in love with and having great sex with people who do not look like that. And I think it's really,
Sure.
really important for people to understand that.
Yeah, sure. For example, I mean, I don't know how many as a percentage, but all the men that prefer larger size women, but who, might not ordinarily say that in public because it contrasts
Mm,
status quo. Yeah,
mm.
yeah, yeah. And so weaving you into this conversation here, Cindy, there was a survey, and there still is a survey, for everyone to report their experiences of patriarchal sex. And a lot of the answers are infused with influences from the miseducation around sex that they or their partner had from typical porn. So, not being the only influence, but a very dominant influence, actually, in the way that people have sex in their everyday lives. And so I would love to ask you, this is the one main question I ask everyone on this podcast. How would you define patriarchal sex?
So I'm very selective about the younger men that I date. I meet them on cougar dating sites, but no matter how casual the relationship, I've one fundamental criteria. They have to be a very nice person. I have fantastic radar for very nice people. So as a result, I only date utterly lovely younger men in an atmosphere of mutual trust, respect, affection, liking. And I bring this up because
If you are a woman, I want you to know about the work I do when not speaking on this podcast, which is all about how to live from your embodied womanly presence for your health on all levels, as well as it being a feminine spiritual path in itself. And it has a way of effortlessly unlocking your unique gifts to be a voice for women in the way that you are called to do so. And this happens through a facilitated training called Women's Somatic Sovereignty Certification. It gives you the chance to restore your own female nervous system, which I specialize in, while gaining the skills to be an effective somatic professional supporting women to thrive. Come to one of my free workshops to know more about this. We have a fantastic community of women to learn and to grow with, which has been going strong since 2005. So see the links below this episode for more on certification training.
Um, People assume that that translates into the bedroom. And, I can be dating the loveliest younger man, and we get into the bedroom, and I see him modeling the body language that says, my dick is the center of the universe. Because that's what he's internalized, growing up watching male-centric, male-lens porn.
That's it.
Yeah. And the sad thing is it is completely unconscious. My response to the question is, it is the unconscious internalization that for the man, and I speak as a straight woman, obviously, the unconscious internalization for the man that it's all about you. It's all about him. What matters is his pleasure. What matters is that he gets off. Everything else is subjugated to that. And, that's really sad because I'm a big fan of radical simplicity. I like to keep things very simple. The single biggest turn on in the entire world is to be in bed with somebody and know they're having a bloody amazing time because of you. And there are not enough people who get to experience that.
Obviously, with that, visual demonstrations of what that would be like to get some training or creative ideas from.
Yep, yep. And so that is Make Love Not Porn. We are sex education through real world demonstration.
Exactly, exactly. So let me know if I've gotten this clear, because I think I've heard you say this elsewhere, that while you like to make lots of distinctions within porn, with what people already know to be porn, you don't consider what you're doing as porn. Is that right?
Absolutely, because it's not. So porn is produced, performative, scripted entertainment. Produced by a production company, shot in a studio, cast with actors. Make love, not porn. And as our tagline says, we are pro sex, pro porn, pro knowing the difference. We are the sex people have in the real world. So our Make Love Not Porn, nobody's performing. And by the way, bear in mind, we watch every single video from beginning to end. And if it's too performative, we do not publish it. We invite people to just set their camera up wherever, keep it running. They're having the sex they have for real in the real world. And, we love our Make Love Not Porn stars because they have really generously invited our members into this most intimate area of their lives because they, like us, want to see more open, healthy attitudes towards behavior around understanding of sex. In fact, entertainingly, over the years, we've had a number of people upload videos to Make Love Not Porn without even realizing they could get paid. They've just come across us and gone, oh my God, this is what the world needs. We want to be a part of this. We want to give back and shared videos. So no, we are the only place on the internet where you can see the wonderful sex that we all are having in the real world, for real.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. That is an incredible idea. It's an incredible business. It's an incredible contribution as an alternative. And I want to get into your review process a bit that you've talked about today, because you would hope, you would think, right, in regular typical porn, that the filtration system, their review system, would, at the bare minimum, be able to distinguish human trafficking situations from consenting adults or adults to
No, no. First of all, setting Make Love Porn aside, nobody elsewhere is doing what we do. We are the only site on the internet that watches every single video
Yeah.
submitted, and we are the publisher. Nobody else does that anywhere. But no, that is simply not possible, because when you when you have threatened somebody into looking like they're enjoying it, you're not going to be able to tell.
Mm. Gosh, that's very sad. But so when you talk about your review process, I just want to really highlight here that you're not only looking out for situations like that, or you probably wouldn't need to as much on your website. You specifically said that you're looking for what's performative
No,
because that,
no,
yeah,
yeah, no, so here's an interesting thing. Because our curation process starts far further back than watching the videos. And again, this is why every other platform in the internet should be emulating our model, our approach and what we do. So here's the thing. We make it crystal clear everywhere exactly what Make Love Not Porn is all about, which is the documentary to porn's Hollywood movie. And we invite videos that are the sex you are having for real in the real world. And we make this crystal clear, not just in our FAQs on the platform, but in every media interview we do, across all our social channels. Here's an interesting thing. When, as a platform, you make it crystal clear what is the only kind of content you want, that is the only kind of content you get. So I find it very entertaining when people say to me, as I have done over the years, oh, Cindy, what mental health measures do you have in place for your team? Because they must have to watch such horrible stuff. I go, no. Our curators at Make Love Not Porn watch nothing but love all day, every day, because we've made it very clear that that is what we are. We are a platform for love in action. So first of all, you're not going to submit anything to Make Love Not Porn won't be accepted because it is not what we're looking for.
yeah.
Real world love, real world sex. Then, when you submit your video, our submissions process cannot be completed unless your video is fully legal, fully consensual, everyone's over 18. We require full identifying details, full legal name, address for every participant, combined with 2 forms of government issued ID for each participant. And by the way, every other adult site on the internet only requires 1. We require 2. Okay? And we have an automated submissions process. But when you've entered everything, all the paperwork, we then check every submission with human eyes. No one else does that, by the way. It's all automated, and then our curation team checks every single submission to make sure we have all the paperwork, it's all legal, it's consensual. On Make Love Not Porn, if you are at all worried about your employer, your college, it's fine to be anonymous. You can wear masks, keep your faces out of frame, in shadow, pixelate, whatever. But if you submit an anonymous video, we do something nobody else does. We require you to submit along with it a full face photo of yourself holding your government issued visual ID up next to your face. No one else requires that. Okay. So only when we have all of that do we then watch your video from beginning to end. And, by that stage, if we feel somebody's overly performative, we will reject it. But that very rarely happens because people know this is the site where you share your real world sex. Then once you watch a video, great, we are going to publish it. We again do something nobody else does. We communicate with each participant in the video separately, and we say to them separately, we are now going to publish this video, and we want to know that you have consented to us doing that separately. Nobody speaks for anybody else. But by the way, something else we do that nobody else does is, if you've decided to have somebody else behind the camera, and sometimes people are friends or, even if you never see the camera person, we have to know exactly who they are. We require 2 forms of government issued ID from them as well.
Okay.
We know who everybody is. So each person separately gives consent to having the video published. Now, something else we do that nobody else does is our commitment to you as a Make Love Not Porn star is the moment anything changes, your relationship, your circumstances, your career, your life, Doesn't matter what. The moment you want your videos down, we'll take them down. And what that means is we don't have an online application process. There is no form to fill in, there is no waiting period, because literally all you do is you message us through your chosen medium and we'll take them down immediately. Nobody else anywhere makes it that easy. You can literally, and this does happen quite regularly, we might publish your video one day. You are free to change your mind overnight. We'll take it down the next morning. Nobody else makes it that easier to remove your content the moment you no longer want it up.
Yes, that's incredibly respectful and a great way of doing it. And I'm thinking about the people listening, Cindy, and I mean, a lot of people listening to this, both men and women, are becoming aware what really is patriarchal sex, and am I doing it? Am I part of it? And it's guaranteed that they will be, and unless they have really questioned things. And so I want to highlight, the male-centric focus and also a performative approach to having sex. Like you've named these things very clearly as telltale signs in your business of how you would know if something is in that patriarchal sex genre.
Yep. And I'll give you a couple more examples. So when we were building Make Love Not Porn, I said to my team, I want to find a term for the female version of blowjob that is as quick, easy, and simple to say. Because cunnilingus doesn't hack it. Okay, oral sex. Okay, and I said the reason this is important is because when something is quick, easy, and simple to say, it gets said a lot more, it gets asked for a lot more, and it happens a lot more. Because we are all about orgasm equality at Make Love Not Porn.
Okay.
So our tag for the female version of blowjob is lick job. And our lick job videos are extremely popular because this is the real world. As my friend sex nerd Sandra likes to say, if your eyebrows aren't wet, you're not doing it right.
So quite literally, people are getting actual clues, ideas, visual
Yeah,
guides,
that is
actual
matriarchal sex. Yes, exactly.
right.
Then here's another example. As I said earlier, everything about our platform is consciously intentionally designed to make it easier to talk about sex. Because we don't talk about sex as a society, we have no socially acceptable vocabulary with which to do so. The language of porn has rushed in to fill that gap, and that is not good for a number of reasons, not least of which is that, as you would expect from a male-dominated industry, the language of porn is predominantly male-generated. So the person who coined the term finger blasting did not have a vagina. Because if you have vagina, you have the term finger blasting, you want to cross your legs. The person who coined the term getting her ass railed never got his ass railed. Pounding, banging, slamming, wrecking, destroying, all terms created by the people who do not possess the soft internal tissue to which those things are being done. So at Make Love Not Porn, we are building a new vocabulary for real world sex. We tag our videos completely differently to the way anybody else does. We tag them with terms like juicy, succulent. Our tag for oral is downtown. Our tag for anal is deliberately derived from the recipient's experience of anal. We tag our anal sex videos, ow, 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 hey now. And we're doing this because we want you to take this language and use it beyond our platform in the real world. Because this is language you can use to talk about sex in the coffee shop, in the bar, in public without being embarrassed about what's coming out of your mouth, worrying about being overheard. And it's language you can use to talk about what you want to do in bed in a celebratory, positive, and gender equal way. So we are using our unique tags. And by the way, we have a glossary that we call the lictionary. We are using the lictionary to reshape the way that people think about sex. So, for example, I get called up regularly by journalists going, so Cindy, we like to interview for a piece we're writing about how porn addiction is causing erectile dysfunction in young men. And I go, no, it's not. And they go, what do you mean? And so I explain that in the real world, men are frequently semi-erect or not erect, because that's the way it is in the real world versus in porn, where it's all about how big it is, hard, it's edited, etc. And so we have a tag for those of our real world sex videos where the man is semi-erect or not erect. That tag is derived from the world of ice cream. We call those videos soft serve because soft serves are yummy and delicious.
Yeah, you're really, really right. And so that imagery of a man must be hard and fully erect, and if it's not
Mm.
that, it's not enough, and how there's no realism in that. And so there's a lot of conditioning that men have from typical porn when they're thinking that they should be like that. And I want to name something that I've heard that happens in the making of typical porn, and I'd love you to share how that actually is on over on your site because I heard from a woman who was actually in it, in a scene, um, that they, go to a great deal of trouble really to wipe female arousal, uh, you know, her liquid on her vagina away because it's somehow seen as disgusting or obscene, and they don't really want that to be shown. And so, what people don't know is that they're stopping the scene quite regularly to wipe her to make her not look as aroused as she might actually be. And I thought that was wild. I never knew that that was going on.
Now, I would recommend caution. I've never heard of that, and I have many, many friends in the porn industry. Okay, and I can tell you that what you don't see on porn sets is a giant barrel of lube in the corner that everyone's using. So I am going to question the veracity of that because I have never heard of that. Where I thought you were going was what I absolutely can testify to the veracity of, which is that the male actors in porn are absolutely using Viagra. They are injecting their cocks to the extent that a very dear friend of mine is a retired male porn star because he did that so much that in his 20s, a doctor said to him, if you carry on doing this, you are never going to have an erection again. And he left the industry. So yeah, there are obviously some very unfortunate things going on. But what you mentioned, I've never ever heard of, and I'd be amazed because actually, what is great on Make Love Not Porn is that you will absolutely see people using lube, and I've had young women write to me and say, sex is painful, but if I want to use lube, my boyfriend thinks I should be really wet, like those porn actresses who don't need it. Of course, I mean, they're using lube out the wazoo. So, no, that particular incident I've never ever heard of. So
All right.
I question the validity of that, to be frank.
Okay, so that's not standard from what you know.
No,
Okay.
no, absolutely not.
Yes, yes. And when it comes to not being fully erect at all times, I mean, when a man isn't, it totally lacks sensitivity in the shared
Well,
experience.
yeah, and also, I mean, so I remember years ago, back when Twitter was a force as opposed to the shit show it currently is, I tweeted something about the female orgasm. And I have a lot of followers on Twitter still, and some lovely men who are following me, and this is all very well intentioned. They tweeted things in response like, "Oh, Cindy, I don't know if I keep going that long." And I went, "Guys, newsflash: we don't need your dick to have an orgasm. We are completely happy with your mouth, your tongue, your fingers." I said, in fact, I've been known to say after my partner's orgasmed, lend me your hand, and you don't even have to move it. I'll move it for you. And so one of the very important things we do at Make Love Not Porn is we showcase all the wonderful ways in which you could have a really good time that do not involve penetrative sex.
Totally, totally. And that's another thing about the typical patriarchal sex paradigm is that's assumed that a penis is the main event, penetration is the main
Mm,
event. Yeah.
mm, mm.
And so men and women, but men in particular in this instance, penis owners, are seeing videos on Make Love Not Porn and realizing these things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, absolutely. A couple wrote to us this quite soon after we launched. We got this lovely email from a couple who said, we've been married for 20 years, had a great sex life. The husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer, had surgery, chemo, came through cancer-free, but unfortunately erectile dysfunction resulted. And they were very unhappy about this, and so they went to see a therapist, sex therapist, who said to them, there's this website called MakeLoveNotPorn. And they wrote us this absolutely rhapsodizing email about how wonderful, and the thing that really struck me was towards the end, they said, we can't thank you enough. In fact, our sex life is now even better than it was before the operation. And while they didn't spell it out, I think that's because they saw many, many wonderful ways to have a good time that did not involve penetration.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's such a key thing to get out of the patriarchal sex paradigm and open up realms of pleasure that were not previously happening.
And I'll tell you another. This is the matriarchal effect of Make Love Not Porn versus patriarchal sex. So I designed Make Love Not Porn to be fully diverse and inclusive, and we are. Our members, our Make Love Not Porn cells are all ages 18 to 80, literally, all races, ethnicities. We're a global platform: male, female, trans, non-binary, straight, LGBTQ, asexual. But in the 13 years we've operated, we've discovered that Make Love Not Porn is especially a revelation to men. More men of all ages send us grateful emails, leave appreciative comments, because we are something utterly unique that men will find nowhere else on the internet, which is a safe space where men can be and watch other men being open, emotional, and vulnerable around sex. You would not believe the number of men who write to us regularly and say, I just watched my first video, Make Love Not Porn, and afterwards I cried.
Oh,
I've said for years, I wish society understood that the opposite of what it thinks is true. Women enjoy sex just as much as men, and men are just as romantic as women. Yet
yeah.
neither gender is allowed to openly celebrate either of those facts. We would
Yeah.
all be so much better off if they were. I put up a great Twitter exchange a few years back between two men. The first man who tweeted, as a joke, obviously, he tweeted, hey guys, I've got this really weird fetish. I've got this kink. Well, I want to watch porn where people are honest, loving, loyal, decent, and really like each other. Hit me up the honest links, please. Another man replied and said, there's this website called Make Love Not Porn where you can watch real couples making love. He said, I watched a video where the woman said to her man, I love you, while they're making love. He said, sincerely, I cried when I heard that.
Mm.
At Make Love Not Porn, we transform through the power of love, intimacy, and human connection, which is what everybody wants. And that is the opposite of what the patriarchy makes men feel they can open up to, unfortunately.
Yes. It's so incredible. It's so incredible. I'd love to ask you, what's one of the most surprising stories from the viewers of Make Love Not Porn that you've heard in terms of how it's actually impacting them and helping them to open? Was there something that you heard that surprised you?
Um, Honestly, I mean, we get amazing emails all the time, and they really blow us away. I think you know this is what I would highlight as just the most uh, powerful, because
Mm.
even I, when I came up with this idea, didn't understand how transformative it could be. So a woman wrote to us a couple of years ago and said, my husband and I have been married for 20 something years, and sex had dwindled to like a few times a year. She said, this is the best $10 a month I've ever spent. That's how much our subscription is. She said, in the first month of joining Make Love Not Porn, we've had sex 8 times.
Please know that whether you are a man or a woman or a couple listening in to this podcast, you are welcome to get in touch about private mentoring, where I can personally support you to unlearn patriarchal sex, to establish yourselves together in the beyond, which is the most natural yet evolutionary way of exploring intimacy together, increasing the pleasure, the love, the fulfillment that you get to have as man and woman. Whether you're beginning this journey or whether you're already quite advanced, you're welcome to talk with me on a free connection call to see whether a confidential, private mentoring process is right for you. You can find the connection call links in the show notes.
And she raves about our videos now, MakeLoveNotPorn stars. But the interesting thing is that she said in her email, she said, it's not just the sex. We now feel closer, more connected, more intimate, and more in love than at any other time before in our marriage. I mean,
Wow.
we've taken them to a whole new level in their relationship. And that really blew me away.
Yes, yes. It's incredibly important what you've created, Cindy. And, I've had a look at your background and I've also heard you tell the story that firstly, you're located in New York, is that right?
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been there for some time. And so you're right in
27 years. Yeah.
27 years. So you're right in
Mm.
amongst it. I imagine that you are surrounded by people with an incredible wealth of resources, and yet your project here has been underfunded. And I find that so mind-blowing to hear you say, because you aren't just a phenomenal woman with a really much needed vision for humanity that's actually changing people's lives. You actually are an advertising executive. You are basically the full package for an investor to know that you're going to follow through and do it really fucking well.
No, no, honestly, absolutely. And here's my challenge: finding investors and funding. I know that my investors are out there, and there are a ton of them, and there are a ton of them in every country in the world. By the way, I know there are a ton of them in Bali. Okay,
Yeah, right.
they are impossible to find by the conventional means because they all have one thing in common. Your willingness to fund Make Love Not Porn is entirely a function of your personal sexual journey.
Mm.
It's a function of your personal lens on sex and sexuality that's been shaped by your own experience of it. And I obviously have no way to research and target for that. Not least because sex is the area where you cannot tell from the outside what anybody thinks on the inside. The people who look like they would totally get it don't. The people who look like complete prudes do. And so my strategy has to be I put what I'm doing out there all the time, across all my social channels. I do every media interview I'm invited to. I have to make synaptic connections happen that will attract those investors to me. It's a long, slow, painful, and obviously extremely inefficient process. So yeah, it is, but that's it. I'm always looking for the people who get it. And by the way, the flip side of that is if your personal experience of sex was shaped by negative forces, there is no business argument that will ever make its way through that.
Mm. So is there a question here of, whether it's the ultra wealthy or not, how can we entice people who don't know what they're missing?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, listeners, we have a bridge funding safe note. That's a simple agreement for future equity. The minimum amount is $25,000. So if anybody is out there going, this is a really good way to invest $25,000, come on in. And also, we now have a non-profit vehicle. So you can make tax-deductible donations from donor-advised funds. You can make, family office grants, foundation grants. We have partnered with a wonderful non-profit called Inspire Access, which was started a few years ago by mother-daughter team, Patrice and Nair Brickman, who observed that there's a ton of philanthropic capital out there sitting in donor-advised funds, where the wealthy people who've committed that money to philanthropy have taken the tax benefits, but the money is not moving through. And so they start Inspire Access to be able to channel, donations to founders of for-profit social impact ventures like mine who otherwise struggle for funding. So we can also take donations. There's a minimum level of $5,000, but if anybody would like to either invest or donate, Cindy at MakeLoveNotPorn.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people listening have 25,000.
Ship
I'm
it in, ship
sure.
it in. And especially, but by the way, sorry to jump in, but I do want to talk also about what we've just launched, because this is also what we need funding for.
Yeah.
So parents and teachers began reaching out to me from day one of Make Love Not Porn, begging me for the 0 to 18 and beyond sex education extension of what we do. And so 10 years ago, I came up with the idea for MakeLoveNotPorn.Academy, which is what I characterize as the Khan Academy of sex education. Because Khan Academy, the online tutoring platform, tutors children all around the world on every other topic under the sun except this one. Education technology, EdTech, is exploding as a sector, not in this area. So I came up with the idea of the Academy as a global aggregator hub for the best in the world sex education content that is already out there, but is being blocked, censored, and deplatformed everywhere. So
Yes.
our mission at MakeLoveNotPorn.Academy is to organize the world's sex education information to make it universally accessible and useful. That is a deliberate paraphrase of Google's original mission statement. Organize the world's information to make it universally accessible and useful, because today in this area, Google isn't doing that. The algorithm is biased, it's censoring. Parents and teachers tell me when they search for the resources they need, they cannot find them. And so we are building the Google of sex ed. And excitingly, we have just taken the Academy live under the radar. It's very early stage, bare bones beta. So listeners, go to MakeLoveNotPorn.Academy. Be forgiving. We are real world testing it while we load educators and content on, because the only thing that protects children from online harms is preempting them with education and making them feel they can come and talk to you, their parents, about anything. And that's absolutely what the Academy is focused on, enabling for parents and children.
Amazing, Cindy. I'm thinking there's so many people that listen to this podcast, different types of people, but I'm thinking right now of parents and educators in particular.
Mm.
Is the Make Love Not Porn site different to this educational one?
Mm.
So if a parent
Yeah.
wanted to give their child an
Mm.
account, that they wouldn't be coming across the explicit things? Does it
Oh,
work?
yeah, no, these are two completely separate platforms.
Yes, got you.
Make Love Not Porn is at MakeLoveNotPorn.com, and the Academy is at MakeLoveNotPorn.Academy, and they are completely separate.
Okay.
But I want to just make you aware of something interesting related to what you've just asked, which is, I mentioned earlier that for years parents have been buying their children's subscriptions to Make Love Not Porn. In the past couple of years, messages from parents in that context have gotten way more frequent and way more desperate. So last year, a mother wrote to us and she said, I've just discovered my 12-year-old son is watching Pornhub. I would much rather he watch Make Love Not Porn. I know he's underage. Can we find a workaround? Now,
Mhm.
at Make Love Not Porn, we are more legal and legal. We're for 18 and over. We're fully age-gated, But our policy is parental judgment trumps that. As a
Okay.
parent, you know what's right for your child. As a parent, you can join Make Love Not Porn as an adult, but you are then free to gift a subscription to anybody you want. So that mother's now gifted a subscription to her 12-year-old son. Another mother wrote to us and said, I have 3 teenage sons. I want to gift them all subscriptions. Do you have a family plan? And I said to my team, oh my God, we have to create a family plan. And in fact, last year, Fleur Britton, a journalist for The Times in the UK, wrote a brilliant piece for The Times about the importance of talking to kids about sex. And she interviewed a mother in the UK who said, my 12-year-old son was about to go off to boarding school. I knew he'd grow up very quickly there. I bought him a subscription to Make Love Not Porn, because she wanted to get out ahead of what he was going to encounter in the dorms, inevitably. And she said to The Times, Make Love Not Porn is a wonderful little island of good, healthy sex that this world really needs. teenagers. And by the way, it's lifelong. We have menopause education, menstruation, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow.
It's cradle to grave education, basically.
Brilliant. This is so needed. So well done
It
for
is.
crafting that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, truly, truly. And we're coming towards the completion here. And I want to say something that people would have heard me say before on this podcast,
Mm,
which is speaking just for myself. I mean, I would
mm,
much rather be having sex than watching other people having sex. And saying that, though, it highlights the motivation why people would be having subscriptions to Make Love Not Porn, because you've already told us that the results of people that are watching your
mm,
channel they are
mm.
having more sex with their
Yeah,
partner in
yeah,
their life.
yeah.
And so their motivation for watching it, because for some people it's comfort, it's an outlet, but I think people would be watching Make Love Not Porn for creativity, for ideas. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. And we hear from our members that we expand their sexual horizons because what you see on Make Love Not Porn is the real world version. So we exist to celebrate the full glorious spectrum of human sexuality. We have a ton of BDSM videos. Do we have kink? But you see the real world version, which is a negotiation beforehand, the setting of boundaries, and the aftercare. Coming out of it and you see things on Make Love Not Porn you will see nowhere else. So for example, we have a ton of role play videos, okay? But only on Make Love Not Porn, when you see a role play video where the couple have decided they're going to play out whatever scenario, halfway through, one of them goes to the other, you know what, this isn't really doing it for me. The other one goes, yeah, it's all a bit meh. They go, this is fuck. And it's very important to see that because what that says is it's very low stakes. You can try something, discover halfway through you don't like it. It's fine to just give up on it as opposed to thinking, power through regardless, And so people see the accidents, the messiness, we have one couple, Make Love Not Porn stars, who decided that they wanted to have anal sex for the first time. They shared a series of 3 videos because that's how long it took to work up to it. And that is what happens in the real world. You
Yeah.
start thing is you start with butt plugs, you work up to it, and then eventually you get there. And so we hear all the time from our members. One man wrote to us and said, there was I can't remember what the video was of, but he said, I'd always wanted to do this. I hadn't liked to broach it with my wife. We watched the video together. She said to me, "Why don't we try that?" He went, "It was fantastic. Thank you so much." So yeah, we people find inspiration. They find reassurance.
Yeah.
And we absolutely help expand people's sexual horizons.
Yeah, incredible. And you're showing people the real beginning, the messy middle, not just the
Yep.
polished
Yep.
finished product.
Yep. And also, that is what real love and connection is all about. So a young woman left a comment on a video. She said to the couple in it, she went, "This video was amazing." She said the sex was really hot, but she said what I really loved was, the stopping for snacks, pets wandering in, spilling water on yourself when you were having the snacks, mopping up with a t-shirt, and she said, you two are hashtag relationship goals. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we show you the kind of great sex we all want to be having, loving, connected, intimate, comical. It's okay to laugh. It's hysterical that just happened.
Yes.
Totally relaxed and conversational. We have a tag which is chatty for the videos where people are communicating during sex. That's so important. Yes, you can say what you want. You can say what feels good and what doesn't. And people learn that as well. Again, it's all about being open and honest.
And I just want to say here at the end, because this is called Beyond Patriarchal Sex, for me, when I think of what's beyond it, I don't think matriarchy actually. What I think is mutual respect, mutual pleasure. This is the alternative. This is
Mm,
the other option.
mm.
And Cindy, you are helping to fill that need that is really required in society all across the world. So thank you for the phenomenal work that you've been doing like so focused on this for such a long time. You're an amazing woman. I'm so happy we got to talk today, and thank you for sharing with everyone here.
Devonshire, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you. And by the way, especially because you're one of my favorite places in the world, which is Bali, which I'm dying to return to. So hopefully someday we can meet IRL.
I would absolutely love that. I really look forward to that, Cindy. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this episode if it's moved you, and know that saving or sharing it around, it genuinely helps to spread this message and also to attract more interesting speakers to join the Beyond Patriarchal Sex conversations. And there is much more to come, so keep tuning in to these weekly episodes so that we can all be part of shifting division into connection for ourselves and for the coming generations.